Mo, thank you so much for joining us, man. Really appreciate having you on today.
My pleasure. It's so nice to see you again, and so nice to see Faridun. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Just as a way of background, as I always do, I've known Mo for a long time. He's been a mentor to me and my partner for many, many years. I'm going to let him talk about his experiences, but he ran a software company for quite some time, and when we started our company, we used to meet with him and go through yearly, reviews with him, and there were always really good conversations that we had. We were always very forthcoming. So appreciate having you on. I'm sure this is going to be a great conversation. I've already benefited from my conversations with you, so I'm sure this one's going to be no different.
It's always been
Um,
actually my pleasure to see you and Ahmad, and it's really fun to see businesses flourish and grow. And if I had a tiny little part to play in your success, it's really an honor for me.
Yeah, you're too kind, man. And you definitely did, and we appreciate the guidance. So just to get started, man, why don't you tell us just a bit about yourself, your background, how you grew up, where you grew up, what you did, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So my background, I studied engineering at the University of Toronto. Before that, I lived in England for a few years and was born in Iran, moved to England, went to boarding school there for a number of years, and then moved to Canada where I started university and got my engineering degree. My first job was in auto manufacturing facility, and it was basically the job that I got offered. I thought it was kind of interesting. It was a joint venture between General Motors and Suzuki, and I was employee number 62 when they started. We were working out of a trailer. The factory wasn't even built, and when I left the company almost a year later, there were almost 2,000 people in the company. So I
Wow.
really came in at the startup stage, which has actually been always the fun element for me, is getting into companies at that early stage, helping grow, watching it grow. And I think I've learned a lot. I mean, almost every opportunity that I've had, whether within my own business or outside, I've managed to learn quite a bit from all of my surroundings. I'm a sponge of information, and I like to soak it all up. And that's what sort of shapes my view today, is all the learnings. And I think I'm on the maybe 20% full mark yet, so I still have a lot to learn, 80% more to go. So I'm still trying to absorb and learn more information.
That's awesome, man. So now I know, so when we met you, you were running a telecommunication software company. So what took you from, the auto manufacturing gig to that firm? And I know there was your company. So give us a bit of a background on how that came about, how you started it.
Interesting story with that was with my job, I actually had applied for a promotion, and I got denied the promotion. And my manager said, "It's not because we think you're not capable." I think I was 23 years old at the time. Well, it's not because we don't think you're capable. You'd be the youngest manager if you got this promotion, and we know you could be very successful at it, but we just think you're too young. So wait a few years and apply again for another promotion. I said,
Right.
okay, it's kind of a strange way to, run your business, but that's fine. And then they came back to me sort of the next day and said, yeah, we've noticed that you were a little disappointed. And they had a roadmap for me. And they said, in 5 years, you'll be this, and in 10 years, you'll be this, and in 20 years, you'll be this. And then that actually was the worst thing they could have done for me, because I really hadn't plotted the rest of my life at that company, and they sort of plotted that for me, and that was like, oh my God, this is not where I want to be in 20 years.
Right, right, right.
Where the guy was so excited that I would be in his sort of position in 20 years time, and I had much different goals for myself. So then I thought, you know what, I better start thinking about doing something else. And an opportunity came up to start this business, and I took it. And I had no assets, and this business was going to give me no income. So I sold my car, started this business, and I found a partner, that I started the business with. He only lasted a couple of years in the business because literally we were making no money for the first couple of years. And he decided to leave and find success elsewhere. And he's been super successful in his own way. But I continued and plowed along with this business. And that was sort of one of the first lessons I got in early on in entrepreneurship is no matter what you think or how you think things are going to end up, you know, the tides of your fate will take you where they take you.
Right.
And I've always, and I think I've used this with you as well, which is starting a business or running a business is like putting a ship to water. You have a general a guidance as to where you want the boat to go. You point it in that direction, and you hope that the winds take you in the direction where you've set it. But of course, they never do. The winds change direction. You know, there's different tides. You know, there's weather events. So business is just like that. You have an inkling about where things go, but then, you know, the winds take you where they take you, and it's customer demands, it's people inside your organization, there's all kinds of you know, pulls that take you in the different directions. And in fact, like my partner leaving was, you know, one of the blows, you know, and there was literally two of us at the time, so it was one of us after he left. So, you know, how do you persevere on your own and keep going? And then of course I added in more people that came in and joined, and we were able to grow the business from there. So, it was a business I knew nothing about, an industry I knew nothing about. So I learned it all from scratch. And even though I'd studied, you know, elementary computer programming at engineering, I wouldn't have called myself a programmer, but, you know, I needed to code. So I sort of forced myself to code and build product and you know, approach it, you know, sort of approach businesses sort of fearlessly, you know, let it go where it's going to take you, and don't be afraid of doing things that you've never done before and going outside of your comfort zone.
That's actually awesome. And you raised a bunch of things that I want to dig into. So one is, I really appreciate you saying, first of all, the analogy is really cool with the ship and the tides, and you give it a general direction. But what I like most about that is sometimes I get a little bit frustrated in business when people get too hung up on like, what's your 3-year plan, 5-year plan, 7-year plan, and then they project these numbers to the penny. Like we're going to projecting 14 million point. It's like, listen, man, like you cannot have that kind of a precision prediction. You never know. I like the idea of having some kind of plan. Of course, you want to have some kind of a direction, but like it's impossible. And sometimes I get that people get way too caught up in those plans instead of just staying a little bit loose, having some kind of a direction, but being willing to adapt. And like the pandemic, who would have seen this coming, right? Like everyone's 5-year plans is out the window right now if they were like banking on none of this happenings, right? So you just don't know. And so I appreciate you saying that, because one of the big things that I get asked a lot by a lot of the students that I talk to is that they're afraid that since they don't know exactly how they're going to do this, that they shouldn't do it. And I always tell them, like, nobody knows how things are exactly going to go. And like you said, don't be so afraid, be fearless, but just go for it and then adapt. But be willing to adapt, be willing to steer. And just know that all this shit you hear about everyone with their fucking perfect plans is not quite like that. You do ultimately need to pivot, you need to adjust. No one knows exactly what the future is going to hold. So
right. I mean, listen, you know, you roughly have an idea. It's like, you know, another analogy. Sorry, I don't want to give too many analogies, but
no,
I have grown daughters, and you know, they're looking to sort of establish themselves in their careers. And my older daughter actually was in school with Feridun, so they're the same age. And so, you know, I tell them, look, you know, you're going to be playing poker when you sit at the table. So, and you're going to get dealt a hand. But if you don't sit at the table, you don't even get dealt a hand, so you can't play. So don't be afraid to sit down and receive the cards, but you don't know what the cards are going to be. So that's exactly what you say. You have to have an idea, and you have to have, you know, I like plans in terms of like painting a picture of where you want to go in your mind, of, hey, I want to sort of build, you know, today, if you get up and say, I want to build a $10 million business, I'm making it up. and you set that up in your mind, you will build a business that will roughly get to that $10 million mark. If you paint a picture that I want to build $1 billion business, like many of the people in Silicon Valley do, they get there and they say, yeah, I want to build $1 billion business. Then you take different steps and you take different risks in order to build a $1 billion business. So you have to have some plan around where you want to go. It's almost like, who do you want to be when you grow up, or what do you want to do? So you sort of have to have, a rough idea of what you want to do. But it doesn't mean that you should be, like, to your point, be down exactly to say, if I'm not there, what will I do? Like, I had these discussions early on when I first got married. Business was going slow, income was low, and my wife would ask me, so if by December, what would your revenues need to be, or what would your income need to be by December if you want to stay on and continue doing this for another year? And I'd be like, I really don't know. I can't plan like a year in advance or 6 months in advance. And for people who are planners, it's very frustrating not to have that plan. But for people who are a little bit of a risk taker, they're okay sort of for their plans to be fuzzy around the edges. But I think you want to have some plans, and it's okay for there to be a little bit of fuzz around the edges, but don't go completely without objectives as well.
Right. No, you're right. It's a bit of a balancing act. You got to have some direction, but you got to embrace the gray a little bit. You got to embrace the unknown a little bit, and just be willing. One of the things that we often see happen is that you might go a period of time where you don't actually get any results, and that, like, you haven't signed, say, a new client, but in that time you've done a lot of work, and then that will bring you a bunch of new clients in 3 months time. So it's hard to at any given moment just know for sure if what you've done is a success or not, because a lot of times you're building, you don't necessarily see the results, but you're building towards something. But I want to also just kind of take you back and, like, ask you specifically, if you don't mind sharing, what made you start the telecommunication business? And I hope I'm not messing that up in saying that.
Well, so when I told the story that I was looking for a work outside of the auto business, I really had no idea, what it was. It really was an opportunity that presented itself with, someone I knew was in the same business. They were writing software around the automated attendant voicemail business. This was the late 80s. So it was early days of voicemail within the industry, and somebody else was in that business. And so I had an opportunity to learn about that market and that business, using him as my mentor to sort of learn. Which we started and we did. And initially, our plan was to sell, to try to represent his products in the Canadian market, which we started to do, and we got some customers. But when we ran into some technical challenges, because the product had some compatibility issues with some of our environments and others, they were also too small of a company to try to make the modifications. So we looked for an alternative, and we found another company that had another product similar to this one, but was a better fit for our market. So we carried that second product in the market, and we did quite well with that for about a year or so. We sold quite a lot of systems, but all of a sudden that company was acquired by a much bigger company, and we were their sole Canadian distributor, if you will, even though we didn't have agreement in place. We were their only, if there were any opportunities in Canada, they would throw it our way. The much bigger company had already had established presence in Canada. So all of a sudden, all of our go-to-market paths were encroached on by the bigger company.
Right.
So we decided at that time that we'd learned enough about this business, and that's sort of around the time when my partner left. I'd learned enough about this business and thought that in order for us to really succeed, we need to either control. And this was one of a business person I spoke with. He said, "Look, in business, you want to be either in control of your product, of the supply, or you want to be in control of the demand."
Right.
When you're in the middle, you're always going to get screwed. So we
That's a
knew that
big
we weren't,
lesson.
yeah, we knew that we weren't going to own the demand because the demand is in the market. We wanted to sell beyond our local region. So we thought that we would try to control the supply, and for that it meant that we should basically do what those other products did, which was carry our own, write our own products. So we started to develop our own products, and then we evolved the products over time, watched market trends, some macro trends in the market, and that's, I think, the thing that made our products and our company somewhat successful and be able to make inroads in the market was our ability to early detect macro trends in the market. So when Windows came out and networking became more prevalent in the market, all the stuff that I'm saying, people are like, "Wow, this is like, are you kidding?" That seems so basic, but most businesses didn't have like a network, and so when networking came out, we felt that creating something that would give people network messaging would be beneficial. So we sort of rode on those macro trends, integrated it with email systems, and then eventually, as more the market pivoted towards cloud communications, we made our products more cloud friendly. And in 2015, we got acquired because of some of the technology that we built around cloud integration. And so the company got acquired by a larger American company, Avaya, and I worked there for 3 years before my 3-year contract was up and I left.
That's awesome, man. That's a true success story. That's the whole cycle right there. Start a company, build it up through all the emotions, and then sell it. Big company, walk away. That's beautiful, man. What were some of the biggest challenges, most influential moments that you encountered? Some of the moments that you can look back on and think like, that was a big moment for me. That stuck with you.
Well, there were many. When you run a business over 25 years, 2 recessions, and and a whole bunch of technological and competitive challenges, you sort of learn how to maneuver around them. The first thing I think we did well as a company was we had an amazing team.
Right.
In any company, it's not one person. I may have contributed 5% of the success of the company,
Right.
but it was everybody else in the organization that pulled and worked. So I think if you're going to build a company, it's really important that you surround yourself with highly capable people. And I was lucky enough to work with some amazing people in the organization, both in the senior leadership capacity, as well as programmers, customer service, support, everything. Like our entire organization was fantastic.
Right.
So much so that many of those people have gone on to flourish and become stars in their own right at Avaya, where they continue to work and continue to be successful. And I'm super happy about their success as well. The other thing is,
what do you look for when you're finding those people?
For me, the biggest thing that I look for when I hire people within my team is to make sure that they can technically and physically do the job. If it's sales, are they able to travel to meet the salespeople? Like, are they able to do the work? To me, it always comes down to one question: whether I believe that they can be successful in their position, and they believe they can be successful in their position. Hiring people is really easy. When you apply and you're paying competitive wages to people, you're going to have a lot of applications. As you sift through the different qualities of people that come in, what's really important is try to make sure that people fit culturally within your organization. They can physically do the job, and you and them both believe that you can be successful. And a measure of success is different for everyone and every different position. So it's really like, how can that person be successful within this group? If you have a really, really ambitious person that's coming in at a place in your organization that has no career path, you may not take them because in a year or so that person is going to want to
Right.
grow within your organization, and you don't have a career path for them, which means that in
Right.
the short term you might get some success, but in the long term they won't be successful. So using these sorts of and also obviously creating an environment where you can create that success for those people. So giving them every opportunity. So if you hire a salesperson, you want to make sure that you can support them with enough budget so they can travel, visit the customers, be able to pay them sufficiently while they build their pipeline and accomplish their results. So that requires patience and commitment to those people and a belief that those people can succeed. If you hire marketing people and you don't give them a marketing budget to be successful, well, there's very little they can do, right?
Right.
So it's always around your commitment to making sure that you can create the environment for those people to be successful. And we had very low turnover in our organization.
Mhm.
And part of it is luck. You have the right characters coming in and joining you, and their faith in you as well. It's like it's hiring somebody. It's half offering them the position and half selling them the position. But
Right.
at the end of the day, you really have to evaluate. Like I always evaluate: do I feel like this person can be successful here or not? And on those points, so far I've been lucky to have made few mistakes. Definitely have made some. So we've had people that came in and left after 3 days because they were like, "Oh no, this is not the place for me." To people that left, that we were surprised they left. So definitely have made mistakes along the way. But for the most part, we managed to pull together an extremely talented team of people.
That's awesome. You said something earlier. You said like you love the startup stage, you like it because it's fun, and I want to come back to that. But you also said that you love learning and being like a sponge. And how much value do you put on that? Because I imagine when you hire people, you want them to have the same kind of attitude where they want to engage, they want to learn, they want to grow. I find that it's one of those intangible qualities that you don't necessarily see on a resume, but like you talk to some people and you see that enthusiasm in them, that motivation. And I find like that's a pretty big thing. You obviously have it yourself. Not every role requires that. Some roles require people to be a little bit more just administrative and low key, but a lot of roles, especially senior roles, do require that. So do you specifically look for that, or is that sort of a byproduct of everything else being done right?
Um, I think it depends. When you bring in people in more senior leadership positions or people managers, you want them to be, you want more of that quality, I think, the ability to learn. I personally don't like people that feel too confident around their own abilities.
Hmm.
I want there to be a little bit of question mark around their abilities, because I find
Sure.
people who question themselves tend to want to learn more. But people who say, "Yep, that's easy for me. I can do this. I have no problems doing that," etc. Those kinds of people, it's harder to then convince them that there is a different path. And
Right.
I've learned a lot from people that I've worked with, my colleagues within my organizations, whether it was in my company or in the companies that I've worked in subsequently, from both peers, colleagues, or people that have worked in tiers below you. Everybody has a lot to contribute in that learning process, but you have to be open-minded enough to learn and not cocky enough to think that you know more. And
Right.
also, for me, at least, I always sort of know my limits and where I'm good at and where I'm not good at, and the things that I'm good at, I don't feel like I'm the best at. I feel like I can learn more even on those parts. But I find that a lot of people stand into jobs that is totally not suited for them,
Right.
and that is not necessarily a recipe for success in the end. So you can fool yourself into a position, but you want to make sure that you can actually succeed and be honest about succeeding in that position. So
Right.
yeah, so I look for some of those. It's not crucial for every position, but obviously, if you're bringing in people in the engineering groups and technology, et cetera, and it's an evolving process, you want people to have the ability to learn and pick up new trends, et cetera. So yeah, it's somewhat important in many positions, but probably I wouldn't say crucial in every position.
What are some of the character, like since we're talking about that, what are some of the character qualities that you demand of yourself, but also of other people, aside from that, not necessarily professionally, but generally speaking, even if it's something as simple like and given as almost like honesty, things like that. Like, are there any set of lists? Because and I'll tell you what, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about sometimes, especially for the younger audience, when they listen to this and we're talking about managers and whatnot, sometimes they can be dismissive in that, well, I'm not managing anyone right now, so I don't need to worry about it. But it's like, no, you do. You're managing yourself, and you still need to cultivate these qualities in yourself, and it needs you need to sort of demand certain qualities of yourself first, and then before you can demand them of other people, and they're transferable. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, what business you're in, what you're doing. Those qualities, those core characters, are with you, and they're going to be a big part of your life. So I'd love to get your thoughts on some of the key characteristics that you think are important to building yourself into the best version of you.
Um, I don't know if I have an easy answer to that, to be honest, Ali. I think as long as you're open-minded, willing to learn,
Hmm.
of course, honesty, trustworthiness, being truthful, all of those things are important.
Right,
But like persistence to me is an attribute that is always good to have, no matter what position you're in. Whether you're an
right,
engineer, you're persistently trying to solve a problem, or whether you're in sales and you're persistently trying to get a deal. So persistence is always a good thing to have. Not quitting.
right,
Those kinds of characteristics are always good. And of course teamwork. Because people don't work in isolation. We see people that are always thinking that they can do things on their own or take credit for other people's successes, etc. Those people in the end, they never do. They always get caught, and they always get cut.
right.
So I think honesty, persistence, teamwork, those kinds of traits are important no matter what kind of role you're in.
Right. And you've already alluded to humility as well, just what you were saying earlier in terms of not being too cocky or thinking you already know everything.
Sure.
And that's something that keeps coming up with different people as well, like having the humility to know that you're not the best or you need to learn and you don't necessarily know everything. Um, how would you describe your attitude towards leadership? We talk about this different ways, but obviously, like, you want to inspire, and you've already said this, that you want the people that you hire to feel that they can be successful. You want them to be successful. But how would you describe, like, and I'll give you some examples so that's not super vague. Some people like me, especially when we run smaller teams, you you sort of, you're almost in a captain. You're on the field, you're running around with everyone else, but you also try and lead. Whereas some people, when you get into a much bigger organization, you can't have that same structure. You use different sort of means. Um, do you have any specific thoughts on an ideal sort of leadership structure that you like to follow?
Um, No, I don't. I'm not sure that I have a. I mean, it depends on the size of the organization and how much you need to delegate. But
Right.
I've had people in my life that have mentored me on leadership. Even though we were a private company, like I brought in a board of directors, a professional board of outsiders, and I took a lot away from the guidances that I received from them. And I certainly appreciate, all the knowledge and all the wisdom that they imparted upon me. But I would say, one of the best advice I got around leadership was
Hmm.
try to push decision making down as much as possible. Let
Right.
everybody within your organization be able to make decisions and not be afraid to make decisions.
Right.
Um, I remember my dad always telling me when he first started up as a 22, 3-year-old in an organization, his boss sort of said, go and make mistakes and I've got your back.
Right.
So, allowing allowing people to make mistakes and not have those mistakes be, sort of like career costing, etc., is important. Watching and allowing people to grow within that position, which of course means mistakes. Whenever you learn how to do something new, whether it's walking, you fall once in a while, skiing, or in business, investing, not every trade ends up being good. So in anything, you have some good steps, and then you have some missteps. So making sure from a leadership that you have the back of your team when they make mistakes and allow them to grow into their positions, I think is key. And allowing them to not to be afraid to make decisions is key. And it's hard for when you're in small companies, people come to you for every decision. And so the instinct is always to say, and we were guilty of this 80% of the time. So it's not like I'm saying something and then we ran our business differently. But the inclination is to always make the decision and answer the question that you're asked. But it takes a second to pause and say, well, what do you think you should do? And I trust your decision. Go ahead and do it. And by the way, next time you want to make that decision, just go ahead and I've got your back. So allowing people to sort of grow into their position, allowing them to make mistakes, I think is a key leadership trait that is hard for many people. And good leaders always allow. And I've had the benefit of working for some great leaders who have basically done that as well.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you started saying, "Oh, I don't know," but then you just gave like the best answer to that. But that's something that commonly comes up, and the idea of making people feel comfortable about doing their best and not worrying that they're going to be reprehended in a bad way and making mistakes. Your father actually told me that same story too, and I always carry that with me, and that's a really good one. I appreciate you sharing all that, Mo. I mean, you've already given us a lot of golden nuggets, if you will, a lot of great words to live by. Everything from being a sponge to being humble to working with a great team around you to being truthful and persistent and knowing that you don't always know things and you can delegate work and trust people and allow them to fail with grace. Everything's been super helpful, super, I think, noteworthy. I think anyone who can follow those things will find them to be quite beneficial. Anything else you want to add to that already great list? Anything that I might have missed in that you've said already?
You mentioned COVID as I want to leave. I think this is an important point. Is life is always full of crises, and this won't be once this is over. It's not like we won't have another crisis. A few years down the road. And I worked at one point with a customer who then became a partner in a joint venture down in Hong Kong. And he always used to say, crisis creates opportunity. It was always used to repeat that. Every time like there was an issue or something that came up, he goes, crisis creates opportunity. Where's the opportunity in this particular crisis? And we can actually watch and we can see the companies that have done really, really well and taken advantage of the opportunity. So the last part I tell anyone who's trying to build a business and grow is embrace the crisis. A crisis is a chance for you to remake your business, leapfrog your competitors, and then gives you an opportunity to change the direction of your business. So don't be afraid of crises. Consider them as an opportunity. Figure out where that opportunity is. Whether it's a Zoom and they go out and blow out the market with technology that everybody can use and work from home. And by the way, even now, like we've barely scratched the surface in terms of the opportunities that the whole work from home opportunity has given people. I haven't seen a lot of really innovative things. There are some tools already in place when COVID started. But I haven't really seen people come up with a lot of really innovative things, which means there's lots of room for people to think and innovate and do very interesting, come up with interesting solutions around their system. So, I love the sort of innovation that I see out of people, the things that they think about, and we're also in the midst of a technological change. There's kind of like two or three, the whole work from home, obviously, it's one technological shift, the digital transformation that brings. We also have changes in people living more in suburbia, which offers opportunities. You can see like the grocery deliveries and farm to table and other sorts of opportunities for people in the suburbs that want to bring. And there's many more. There's a 5G coming along, which means faster internet, which means a whole new slew of applications that people can build on top of those kinds of frameworks. And then there's the whole biomedical changes with stem cells and all the whole RNA technology that they're putting into these vaccines. That is also a whole technological shift in the way that health is done, which brings about a whole new set of opportunities in the healthcare field. So we're at this amazing point in life, and we haven't even touched climate change, which presents a whole other set of opportunities. We're at this amazing point where I think, in 30 years' time, like if you look back 30 years, when I finished school and started my career, and 30 years from now, like the world has changed so much in the last 30 years. And I think 30 years from now, the pace of change is going to be dramatically faster. And the sorts of solutions that people will see 30 years from now will be dramatically different than what we've seen in the past 30 years. So I'm really excited about the future. And I would welcome people to take the opportunity and build amazing products and be innovative with their ideas.
That's awesome, man. I love that. What a positive message to end this on. I must admit, I have not been enjoying working from home. I've been trying to make the best of it. I've been doing a few cool things that I can look back on very fondly. But I love that message. I love how you're looking at it. I love your positivity and optimism. And I definitely hope that a lot of people take good advantage of the situation. But to adapt that mindset, I think, is key to look at the crisis as an opportunity and to be optimistic and to use every chance you have to build something great. That's awesome, man. That message right there speaks volumes to you and your character. And again, thank you so much for sharing that. That was awesome, man. Really appreciate having you on, and thank you for sharing so openly with us.
Absolutely, anytime.
Thank you, Mo. Take care of yourself, and hopefully we'll be able to do more of these things, but in person.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.